A little information about where you are right now. You're standing in a road called Reconnoitering Road, which has something to do with reconnoitering, where the Union troops went out and discovered the Confederates eventually. But what I want to draw your attention to are these woods right here. Back at the time of the battle, there were some woods right here that were about 100 yards deep. And then beyond that, a long, narrow field called Ray Field. It goes all the way back, almost to where our cars are. A long, narrow field. And camped in Ray Field was a regiment called the 53rd Ohio Regiment, commanded by Colonel Jesse J. Appler of Portsmouth, Ohio. Colonel Appler knew about as much about military science as Sherman thought he knew about military science. Nothing. And Colonel Appler's camp was, of all Sherman's division, was the closest to the Confederates. Colonel Appler had intuition that there were Confederates out there. He was a fellow of nervous disposition himself, just like Sherman. And he thought something was out there, but Sherman had already chewed him out a couple of times. For good reason, too. Some real dumb orders he'd made. And a lot of panicky reports that he was sending in, that Sherman interpreted as crying wolf. So on the evening of April 5th, 1862, Colonel Appler, being in a near panic, stayed up all night and sent a small party to the far end of Ray Field to listen for the enemy. A listening post. Against all his non-training, he did the right thing. Sent out a listening post. And pretty soon, those guys came back and reported to him that they were in the woods at the end of the field, right by that road that runs past the end of the field, and they could hear troops marching across that road from left to right. And they went back and they reported it to Colonel Appler. Colonel Appler reported it back to General Sherman. General Sherman, after some delay, replied, "You must be badly scared over there." No directions for Colonel Outposts. We'll talk about him tomorrow. So, Sherman is not going to find the enemy. This is going to be very bad for the Union Army. They're going to be surprised on the morning of April 6, 1862. The only difference between surprised and bayoneted in their tents comes from an officer who is not in General Sherman's division, Colonel Everett Peabody, the 25th Missouri. So we're now going to move on down Reconnoitering Road. It's going to be a pretty long hike this time, but it's going to get us close to our cars. We're going to be pretty near the end of our program, and we're going to head right on down to Peabody's camp.